Let's talk about sports cats and UK MOT compliance. Now let's talk about my mate Keith, who is the proud owner of this lovely 981 GTS that we recently did our sports cats and one of our tunes on. Now Keith is generally very chipper, all-round good egg, friend of the business, comes down for a coffee, just a nice guy. However, Keith rang me on Saturday on my mobile when we were closed because his car had failed its MOT and he was particularly unhappy about it. I don't think that was helped in any way, shape or form by the MOT tester stating that it was as a result of the mapping rather than the sports cat, which of course has halved the filtration. It would be the map because that's what everybody always blames, isn't it? However, Mr. MOT tester, when questioned, which is a question I ask straight away and I always ask is, how much experience do we think that the MOT tester has got in engine calibration? I'm going to have a wild stab in the dark that it's a big 0. So, with that in mind, I said to Keith, look, I was a little bit stressed at the time, I'll be honest. Let me come and get the car. Let's make a video about sports cats and MOT compliance and how you make the sports cat, which has halved the filtration, give or take in most cases. How do you get that through an MOT with it doing it legally so that we're not having to do anything bent? So our MOT partner here at Genome is David Palmer's, just up the road. Totally legit, square guys, don't do any dodgy MOTs. It's not something that we want to get involved with. We do everything legitimately here. So we reached out to them and said, do you think we could come up and test the car cold, which is ultimately what the issue is, show that it fails miserably, which of course it did, and you're going to see that in a moment. And then what we want to do is go out and get some heat into the exhaust system. Once we've got some heat into the catalytic converters that are there, the sports cats, then we want to retest it. How does that sound? Guys obliged, and you're about to see exactly what happened. What we wanted to do whilst we've got the opportunity is compare the difference between the standard catalytic converter and this sports cat, which is one of our own ones. Now, obviously you can see the size difference straight away externally, both from a point of view of the sort of width, if you like, versus this one. Obviously it's considerably smaller, you can see that physically there, but also not the most technical way of checking, but as you can see from my hands there, this one I can pretty much get my hands around it, and this one it's massive. I can't get my hands all the way around that one. So externally you can see that that is a much bigger filter, and internally it's clearly going to be bigger to fill that void versus the standard sports cat. Now we're not talking about performance benefits here, but I will just point out the fact that these pipes are all really squashed, as you can see there, whereas ours are all kept round until we get to here. So we've got a better transition, we've got bigger pipe work, which will help with performance and flow, and then we've got a smaller filter, which is one of the reasons it needs to be heated and get very, very hot before it starts to work. Now, if I just flip this over and we look inside this one first, hopefully Steve can show you inside here, if we can get there. Hopefully you can see the honeycomb structure inside this sports cat. It's much, much wider, so we've got a smaller filter in terms of length and diameter, and we've got bigger holes within the honeycomb structure. That's the big reason that you're getting a 200 cell, so more flow, versus whatever this one is, 800 or whatever. And if I flip this one over, maybe we can see inside this one as well. Again, you can see hopefully through there with the light and everything, it's a much, much denser filter. So that's the big reason in the better flow. You are essentially, with this, you're very much borderline. So you're right on the limits when it's cold. When it gets hot and it starts to expand, obviously the gaps between the honeycomb structure will close slightly, and that's what gives it its pass on the MOT essentially. Finally, the last thing that we wanted to test was the weight difference. Now, because this is slightly smaller, naturally it's going to be lighter. There's actually about 1 kilo saving per side, which we can see on the short clip that Steve's done when he's weighed it. So not only are you getting the performance benefit, but you're saving 2 kilos across the car. Now, on a standard road car, you might be sort of saying that's here and there, but people do chase weight, and obviously it makes a difference. So you're getting the weight saving, you're getting the benefit of the flow, and also you're getting a much better product in terms of performance. So what we can see here is the MOT tester from our partners at David Palmer's. Now these guys are genuine MOT testers that we use externally. They will not do you know, dodgy MOTs or whatever. So what we're looking at now is the screen. This is where you would raise the RPMs to match what it's asking for between 2.5 and 3,000, and then it starts to do the measurements at the top. Now if they're in green or yellow, you can see that's a pass there, but in the top left where it's red, it is almost, I mean, it's marginal, but it's still showing as double what the allowed amount is. Now this is where the car is cold, so it does try to lift it up to get some exhaust gas temperature, which is why the RPM has gone into red. As you can see, when the exhaust starts to get a little bit warmer, it does attempt to sort of filter it better, but ultimately we sort of knew this was going to happen and that we were going to fail the test at this point. And you can see that if the test was run at slightly higher RPM, we would probably get it down to being close because the exhaust gas temperatures start to rise. However, there's nothing we can really do at this point. The car is up to temperature from an oil temperature and coolant temperature point of view and has been idling in the car park, but therefore the exhaust isn't actually very hot. And a way to sort of explain this is if we were to put it on the ramp and leave it on the ramp, even after half an hour you'd be able to touch the exhaust system although the engine is up to temperature, versus what we're going to do next. As you've seen, it's just failed. The plan is next to take the car out on the road and do exactly what we recommend to customers. And as you can see here, we're not, you know, sort of going crazy. We're just putting some heat through it. We're building up exhaust gas temperature up and down the bypass. The idea behind this process is to get the actual cat material warm. So you're only going to do that when you're actually driving the car under load. You're not going to create enough heat whilst it's just idling in the car park. The engine will be warm, but the actual exhaust and manifolds would almost be at a point where you could touch them. You certainly could touch the exhaust. The manifold would be hot, but it's going to be way less than what it needs to be for the cats to operate perfectly. So as we're coming up here, the next clip that you guys are going to see is that we are heading back to the MOT station. Now, same again, the MOT tester does exactly the same process again, puts the probe up the exhaust pipe. Again, has to be a genuine MOT test, these guys don't do it. And ultimately what you can see there is immediately we're into a pass zone by a considerable amount. There's a slight blip there as he lifts the revs, and then you'll see it drops right back down again. So as he lifts the revs up, it does change slightly, but now we're almost at zero. In fact, so much so that the tester just goes straight through. It doesn't even bother running it for a full test. Now, at this point here, you've got to maintain a fast idle. So this is where you're lifting the revs up, and it'll fast idle, and so long as he's between 2,500 and 3,000 RPM for the period of time that it says there, it will run the test. If he goes higher than 3,000 or below 3,000, it would fail the test and you'd have to do the fast idle again. Now, as we can see here, that has now gone through. It then comes back down to a natural idle. It has to sit at a natural idle for 10 seconds whilst it reaffirms in the software what it's looking for. And at this point here, this is now the final part of the test, the natural idle. It didn't even run that through. It was so happy with what it's seen that ultimately it's saying, I'm happy, disconnect the speed measurement probe from the engine, and then when the tester presses enter here, you can see that we've got a pass on all 3 points. So whilst we're going through all this information, I'm going to very quickly touch on the actual map from this car itself. Now, down the left-hand side here, we've got all the different map tables, and the ones that are important to us is lambda control maps, because that's essentially what we're doing to control fueling, and as a result that's what creates exhaust gas differences. So anything that's green, just to be clear, is untouched by me. Anything that's white has had a change made to it. Now when we make the change, adding fuel, so lowering this table down, will make it go blue, and if I go upwards, so make it leaner, it'll go red. So as we can see here, the large majority of tables that are important to idle speed and when it's not under load is your minimum lambda set points, which are here, look, so we don't need to change any of that. We've got some basic lambda set points for cat heating, all at 1, unless it's asking for a lot more torque requests. So the way these work is some are based on torque request, some are based on time in full load, some are based on math. It's all different things, but ultimately we only need to make changes when the engine is under more demand, when there's more demand from the engine. So we actually only needed to change these two tables here. The green part means that I've totally not touched it. It's as it is from factory. And the reason that it's not targeting lambda 1 on this particular table is because it's saying when it's in full load. So if you were going up a massive hill and your engine physically at full load, so you've got your foot flat to the floor, it physically can't get past 992 RPM, the manufacturer is saying give it a little bit more fuel. So it's at 0.950 versus if you look at the lambda set points for basic torque request and things like that, at low RPMs here, it's actually targeting just above lambda 1, which is the cleanest possible burn. So just to reiterate, we don't need to change anything at idle or at fast idle because the engine isn't under any load. It's not even in gear, you're just lifting it up. So it will target the cleanest possible burn. If somebody's got the map wrong, which is unlikely because you don't need to change any of this, and they've added fuel, it wouldn't run very nicely at idle anyway. So just to be double, triple clear, we don't make changes unless the engine is under extra demand. So to sum things up, a sports cat will pass an MOT. It's designed to offer better flow, more performance, but work once it gets some heat into it to allow you to still have a compliant car here in the UK. So the next time the MOT tester tells you that it's the map, not saying that it isn't, but specifically if it's one of ours, you've seen how we do the job. So we're going to hand this car back now with an MOT on it, all passed and done correctly. In the future, make sure that you're getting heat into your exhaust system as per these sort of set of instructions, if you like, and I'm pretty confident you're going to have no problems.